Good morning. It's fancy coffee time. Just use some milk. Marsha. Toasted marshmallow syrup. Yes. And 2 scoops of instant espresso. We're gonna microwave this. Not with a spoon in it. That's something I would do with as tired as I am. There are snacks in it, yeah? Ugh. Okay. Microwave time. So yesterday it was filled with excitement. Jordan took him down to West Virginia and he got his tattoo. It's a memorial tattoo for my first husband, Mike. He wanted to get something. Mike's birthday is actually today. He wanted to get something for his first stepdad. Mike was amazing to my kids. We were together for what? Almost 8 years? Yeah, it was about 8 years. So yeah, Mike and I were together for 8 years. We started dating when Jordan was only a couple weeks old. Jordan's dad and I were no. Just no. Okay. But so I was alone my whole pregnancy with Jordan. Me and Mike got together a couple weeks after. We'd been friends and like talking on the phone. And then I was 19 and he was 32. So all of his friends were like, do not date this girl. She's way too young for you. But we did. And we fell in love. And then life happened. I don't know. It's almost like in that marriage, I can look back and see that it was broken before we even got married. There goes my light. Okay, that's a little bit better. My other light died and I didn't want you in the dark. Do you know what I'm saying? So I had to go get my ring light from the living room. Anyways, I miss Mike. I really do. Life happened and it was like there was this one instance that happened that I feel like broke him mentally, and it was never the same after that. It was very, very traumatic, and he wasn't the same. And it was like, I stayed as long as I could, even though it got to a point where like him and I were toxic. I stayed as long as I could because I was so worried about him. And like our marriage was a clusterfuck, okay? When I say we were toxic. Like when I tried to leave, he wasn't gonna let me leave. When he wanted to end things, I wasn't gonna let him end things. I mean, we were the epitome of toxic together. And I think I was also like very, very, very young. So when him and I got together, I was 19 with 2 kids. Again, Jordan was only a couple weeks old. And we started dating. We dated for a few months before he met my kids. And then when he met my kids, him and my oldest, Michael, were like immediately inseparable. But we were together for almost 8 years and I finally left. Like we were like, okay, we're getting a divorce. And then I moved out and I got what me and the kids called our shoebox apartment. So I moved out and I got an apartment and Mike basically came over every single day. Like he didn't want to be without us. And at one point I had to tell him like, Mike, we both need to like move on. We can't, this is not good. Like his family hated me. I hated his family. He was doing a lot of things that were destroying his mental illness, such as, substances. And that was a big problem in our marriage, because there were certain substances that he would do that were like, it changed him. Like, it truly changed who he was. And unfortunately, we lost him a couple of years ago. He took his own life. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to tell my kids. Because even though Mike and I were not together, we divorced in 2012, I think. Even though we weren't together, every time we drove back to Akron, we would go visit him. We would go out to lunch with him. I would take him food, stock up his freezer. He was always their daddy, Mike. And he promised that is the one thing that, throughout our divorce, he was always going to be there for the kids. And he always was. We didn't need him for, some people say they'll stay around to help financially. I didn't need his help, but I needed his relationship with my kids because it meant so much to them. So, I think it was October of 2023, I had to go no contact with him. I actually had reached out to his sister. It got so bad with the mental illness, because, substances affect that. I grew up in a family where lots of substances affected a lot of things. So, I knew what he was doing when we were married, right? And I don't think his family ever wanted to believe me about what the things I had seen him do and was trying to stop him from doing. And so, when I left, it got worse. And there was one time, the last time I saw him, which I think was in like August of 2023, maybe 2022, I can't remember the years. But when I saw him, I gave him a hug, and he smelled like a very, very, very specific substance. And I know that smell. It's like when they're rotting from the inside out. My mom's boyfriend smelled like it. Several of my friends have smelled like it. Like, I know that substance, and it's related to amphetamines. I know the smell. And last time I hugged him, I smelled it coming out of his bones, and my heart broke. It didn't matter. I mean, I couldn't get him to stop doing shit when we were married. Sure as hell wasn't gonna stop doing it now that we're divorced and I live all the way in Pittsburgh, you know. But I reached out to his sister and I begged her. I said, please get him help. Like, his mind isn't right. I told her, I said, I have to go no contact at this point because my husband is concerned for my safety. Like, he was hallucinating, and, you know, there's just so many things. And we lost him. And then I had to tell my kids. So Jordan's birthday tattoo was a memorial tattoo for my husband, Mike. It was just, he got it right here to cover up like a shitty garage tattoo he got a couple years ago, because all teenagers make bad decisions. Mike had a big spider web tattooed here on his elbow. And so Jordan got a little spider web right here with a heart inside of it for his daddy, Mike. That's what they've always called him. You know, I wish I could have saved him. I say that all the time. I wish I could have saved him. But even when we were together and the substances got out of hand, it was like I was in jeopardy of my safety and my children. And the man that I married would have never done the things that the man he was at the end was doing. You know, so that's why, like, I believe trauma truly shapes you. I believe that there are certain traumas that can mentally break you. And that happened with my husband, or my first husband. It was one of the worst things that could have ever happened. We got a phone call one day, and his mom's house had been broken into, and the people that broke in had hurt the dog, and they ended up having to put Susie down. Susie was like a 5-pound Shih Tzu. So that was like where Mike mentally snapped. Now, this was actually before we got married. This happened on like a Thursday or Friday, and Mike and I had tickets to take the kids to Kalahari. It's like an indoor swim park in Sandusky. With all this going on, Mike was like, I can't go, I need to be there for my mom. I was like, that's fine, I'm still gonna take the kids. So I took my mom and stepmom to Kalahari, which was the worst decision of my life because those two fought. I legitimately at one point during the weekend visitation, or the weekend at Kalahari, I locked both of them out of the room and refused to let them in because they were behaving like children. My mom and stepmom, they were like trying to kill it. I was like, you know, I only have you here to help me with my 2 kids. Anyways, we went up to Kalahari, and we came, well, first of all, we were at Kalahari, and my kids were young, very young. So I did not tell them what happened, but I was in the shower, and Michael comes running in. We had the TV on in the room, and sure enough, there's his daddy Mike and grandma on the TV because the news showed up over there. So then Michael learned everything, and he was like traumatized because, you know, we're animal lovers. And how do you explain to a little kid what happened to that dog? You don't. But he saw it all over the news while I was in the shower. Anyways, we get home, and it was like something had snapped inside of my husband. I came home from that weekend trip, and every wall in our apartment was spray painted. Like, he graffitied. Now, I went from a husband who was, at this point in time, he was like so straight edge. He barely even drank caffeine. He didn't touch drugs. He didn't touch booze. He didn't touch nothing. He was straight edge. And I come home, and my entire apartment is graffitied. There's booze all over the place. There's horrible things sprayed on my wall. And I walk in with my 2 little kids and luggage, and I'm just like, that was the day my husband broke. That was the day he mentally snapped, and he never came back from it. Now, I stayed for years trying to get it together. And I don't think, like I said, his family was never a fan of me. His mom believed I was way too young. I had too much drama in my life because my family's crazy. I mean, I couldn't control it, but my family is crazy. And so it wasn't anything like when he started doing things, like it started out with drinking, and then it went to weed, and then progressively got worse. You know, like, I should not be worried about taking my kids down to the laundry room in the basement and folding clothes, and I'm worried about finding needles. I should not worry about that. This is our home. This is like where we're supposed to be safe, and you're the one making it unsafe. His dad, who I'd never met, Mike's dad, was an addict. So obviously Mike endured some things when he was younger that he shouldn't have. And this thing, I don't even think they believe in therapy. So, you know, as far as like the healing stuff, I don't think he ever believed he could. Anyways, with all the drugs and everything, it just got to the point where his mental illness was so bad and zero help being offered, just nothing. And he took his own life. And we found out about it. His best friend added me on Facebook to tell me about it. We were friends for like a week on Facebook, and then he deleted me again. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. Because Mike and I continued talking until I went no contact, which was like 4 months before he took his life. And I had to go no contact because the things he was messaging me, my husband was like, you are not going near him, babe. He was like, I understand you feel he wants the best for you and it's just mental illness, but you cannot put yourself in a room with this man. He's not safe. So I canceled the lunch plans we had. And then he started sending me like, oh, every time I think about those last few messages I got from him were insane, because nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. And it was like you couldn't talk to him about it because he was in an episode, like he's hallucinating, he's got all these things that are not reality, but he doesn't understand that they're not reality. So my husband's like, no, you can't go around him. And then he sent me some messages that involved my brother, who didn't make any sense because him and my brother had always gotten along real well. Him and I had always gotten along real well, especially like after the separation. But these things he was saying, it was like crazy, talking about the FBI and this and this and this. And it was like, what are you talking about? Again, mental illness. Like it's never gonna make sense, right? So today is Mike's birthday. Yesterday, Jordan got his tattoo for his daddy, Mike. So I think I am gonna be busy today cooking, but I would like to make a little cake or something for my kids to celebrate him. My husband's always been so supportive of our relationship with Mike. I mean, that was a non-negotiable in the beginning. It's like, hey, if we're in a date, I need you to understand that like when I go back to Ohio, I'm going to my ex-husband's house to take my kids, and I don't want to be accused of doing anything. So my husband's always been so respectful. He respected the relationship and Mike still being there for my kids. And then when Mike passed away and we found out about it, well, he died in February and we found out about it in August. So it was like, how do you explain that to your kids? Well, I had to explain like, hey, I'm sorry his family hated me and didn't feel like you guys deserved to know, but here, now you know, it was horrible. But anyways, that was something. My husband always knew that there would be a friendship there and that it was important to me and Mike that my kids always had a relationship with him. And he was always very, very respectful of it. He actually met Mike a couple times. He went to Mike's house with me, you know? And yeah, it's heartbreaking because he was such a beautiful person inside before the things happened. And I don't think he ever would have hurt a soul, you know, purposely. What happened between us was definitely due to drugs and alcohol and mental illness, and you know, and for years I blamed myself that he got that bad. Like, I don't know why I blamed myself. Probably just because I blamed myself for everything that went wrong. And I realized like it had nothing to do with me. You know, if anyone was to blame, it would have been him, because he didn't get help. He didn't. And everyone, well, me and my family and friends were all telling him he needed to get help, and he wouldn't listen to us. And I begged his sister, I was like, please help. And she was like, well, he's got things going on at work. And I was like, no, you are not understanding. Like, you're so far over here. I know what's going on, and I'm telling you what's happening right now. He is in a mental crisis. Please help him. And nobody would listen to me, because I was the one who was married to him for 7 years and lived with him and knew the signs of these things happening. But I was just the annoying, toxic ex-wife, you know? But I can't hold it above my head that I didn't save him. I can't do that, because it was never my responsibility to save him. And for all I know, those 7 years, 8 years we were together, that saved him from doing it way earlier, you know, because the mental illness was always there. The trauma was always there. The pain was always there. I just think that, like, when that happened to his mom's dog, it was something he never came back from. And we still got married. Like, that happened before we even got married. That's where I, like, went into, like, hyper overdrive trying to fix him, you know, because you come home to your house. Well, it was an apartment, but, like, your whole apartment's graffitied and everything's trashed, and your ex-husband's blaring, like, skinhead hate music, and you're just standing there with your kids like, what the fuck is going on? You know, that's what it was. And then, I don't know, I just couldn't save him after that. I couldn't. I tried for years. Couldn't do it. I'll never forget when I had to tell my dad we were in a divorce. My dad was like, please don't. Just stay with him. Just stay married. I always failed at my marriages. Dad, my family didn't want me to leave him. Because we had a house. We had a car. I had a job. I had everything my family never wanted. And so they thought, well, just stay there. You already have everything that we would have worked for. So just stay where you are. Nope. I walked away from everything. I walked away from the house, the car. I left there with my bed and my kids' bed. Everything else I refurnished. Like dishes, everything. I took everything and started fresh. Well, I didn't take everything, but I left everything. I started fresh besides our beds. You know, I didn't want anybody to be able to say that I was with him for what I could get, you know, because that was never it. And for some reason, his mom, it was like she felt like I was with him for money or something. Like, no, what? I don't think we realized who was paying those bills when he was spending his money on whatever he wanted to spend his money on, okay? He was a good man. He just had his struggles. Don't we all, though? Don't we all? It's all about what you choose to do with it. So I'll be thinking about him a lot today. It's hard when you lose someone to their own actions, you know? You always have so many questions in your mind. Like the other day I was in Akron, I drove by our house and I just kept thinking, like, where did he do it? Like where? And why did, you know? If everybody knew how bad he was, why was he alone? But you can't question those things. You can't, it does nothing. And that's why I stopped. The life we did have together was beautiful when it was good, but when it was bad, it was bad. Really, really, really bad. I mean, towards the end, we got so toxic. I mean, we were both cheating on each other. But we couldn't, like, walk away. We couldn't, there was something there, and I don't know if it's because, like, we were so trauma bonded. I think that's a lot of it. That's a lot of it. But then when that K2 stuff came out, that spice, oh, that was the worst. That was the worst. That was the multiple times with that. He woke me up like that, accusing me of cheating on him. He was just tripped out of his mind and he woke me up like that. And then guess what happened? Because after a few times being woke up like that, guess what? You go find yourself a little boyfriend. And I did. And he had his little girlfriend. And we both just destroyed ourselves. So I'm grateful I made a comeback from it. You know, I'm sad he didn't, but it's nice because the things that went wrong in, like, our relationship, I always shamed myself for it. But I remember, like, when I first told my husband everything, you never want to admit, like, when you're in a new relationship that you cheated, because they're gonna think that's what you always do. And so we had been together for a month or so, and, like, I started explaining to him what happened in our marriage, and he understood. Like, when I told him, like, I finally went and had an affair, he was like, well, who wouldn't? Like, being woke up in the middle of the night with something held to your head when you're just sleeping, like, it would push anybody to go look for something that they need just to cope. So my husband really, he helped me forgive myself for that. But yeah, I mean, and then that situation, like the affairs we were having, it was a train wreck. Look, no one's perfect. And that's why I guess I'm telling you all this. Okay, no one is perfect. Absolutely no one, not me. And so after our affairs, he was dating some girl, I think her name was Ashley. She was a nurse or something. And, like, when I talked to her, I was like, do you not see he is on the rugs? A lot of rugs. How do you not see this? Like, I was like, you can have him. I'm not like, you can have him. I'm just telling you, like, if you're a nurse, please help him, because he won't let me help him. And I don't think they were together very long. Because I think when she found out like he was married, she was like, yeah, I don't want this. But I wasn't like calling her to tell her, don't mess with my man. I was calling her like, please help him. If you're gonna take this problem off my hands, at least help with the problem. But yeah, it was a lot. It was, you know, and then you look back at relationships like that in your life and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? Well, I was surviving. That's all I was doing. I was surviving. The decisions made weren't the greatest, but they helped me survive. And I can easily say I've forgiven myself for the things that transpired between us. And I know 100% if drugs and alcohol had never entered him, I don't think things would have went like that. But when I left that weekend that happened to his mom and he resorted to alcohol, he went from like 100% straight edge to like off his shit. I think that's what, that instance is like the one that like mentally broke him, you know, because how do you hurt a dog? How do you do that to a dog, to a family animal? And yeah, it was horrible. So wow, what a bummer of a fancy coffee time. Didn't expect to go into that one, but I feel like I needed to talk about Mike because I miss him. I do. Me and the kids still do this thing when we were married, we'd be in a grocery store or whatever. I'd be on one side of the grocery store and he'd be on the other. We would do this thing where he'd go, huss, and we would huss our ways back to each other. And that's how you'd find, you'd just go, huss, huss, huss. And you would navigate to find who you were missing. And me and the kids still do that. It's like one of the things we still do. But yeah, we love and miss you, Mike. My husband will be happy. Mike's favorite cake was peanut butter chocolate, so that's also my husband's favorite cake. Probably make peanut butter chocolate cake and do a little birthday thing for him today. You know, it's crazy. It's like Jason and I, when I started noticing like my mental illness was getting worse and worse and worse, I told him, I said, my biggest fear is that when our dog Buddy goes, like Mike's not gonna be able to handle it. So a couple months before I went no contact with him, Mike called me in the middle of the night and they had to put Buddy down. He had to put Buddy down. And I was worried, sick about Mike. I mean, I was so worried, sick. And my husband was like, babe, you can go down and check on him. But like after that, I need you here. I need you here. Like, that's what my husband was saying because he knew. I would worry myself sick about him. And what can I do from Pittsburgh? You know, like I can't. And then I got to the point where it was a safety thing, you know? It just sucks. So I think when it comes to stuff like that, like you always look at like, what could I have done something to save him? But I know I couldn't have because I tried my hardest. I just wish he would have known how much we loved him, and I wish he would have had the strength to get the help he needed, you know. But I'm proud of myself for getting away from it because I do think that by leaving, I saved my own life. And it's really hard to like, I told my therapist, like, it's so much easier to forgive him for the things he did than to forgive myself for leaving and not being able to save him. But yeah, if you've ever lost someone to suicide, just know, like, me and my boys, we get it. I'm very, very grateful for my husband and how supportive he is and how loving he is. Like, when we're going through this grief, you know, he never ever once, when we've brought up Mike, he has never met it with disdain or irritation, or he respects our love for him, and that's a beautiful thing. So we're gonna make peanut butter chocolate cake today and celebrate Daddy Mike's birthday for the kids. It's gonna be a rough dinner, but we'll get through it, right? So even though his family doesn't like me, I really hope they're okay today, because I can only imagine. I'm gonna go take a deep breath and enjoy the rest of my coffee and maybe write him a letter.